I know, really. Why bother talking? But I will. That was so beautiful, Yvette. So, 8 years we've been running this center, and we've never sang that song.
I would not let anyone, if anybody else had ever asked for it, I would have just said no. But when she said it, I thought, I want to hear that.
It'll be interactive today. Just speak to me. You know, you can't hear that song with, of course, thinking of the woman who sang it, and originally sang it. And you know, all I want to say about that, because I said to Yvette, I said, I'm not going to say anything about Whitney Houston today. But you know what? I do want to say one thing, and that is, I love her, I bless her, and know that she's on her perfect journey. And that's all I ever need to entertain my mind with about that beautiful being on earth. So, the greatest love of all. Let's first just take the word love, and let's try to figure out what that means. It's not just a feeling or an emotion. It's not just the thing that we fall in and out of. It is an energy. It is a life force. It is a consciousness. It is an identity. Love is the very thing that you and I are. It's a synonym, as Ralph Waldo Emerson says, it's a synonym for God. So love, although it gets all that romantic hoopla put around it, love really is the essence of what I am. It's how I maneuver through my life. It's how I choose to live my life as love. And when I'm conscious of that, life changes, doesn't it? Doesn't your life change consciously when you know that you come from love? And that that's actually your calling. And actually, when things don't go well in life, 9 out of 10 times, or let me say 10 out of 10 times, it's because somewhere along the line, we forgot to come from love. And we're coming from something else. We're coming from fear. We're coming from competition. We're coming from disappointment. We're coming from beliefs that grew when we were little girls and boys. I, of course, was referring to Reverend Nancy, not myself. So, Ernest Holmes says that love is a cosmic force whose sweep is irresistible. Love is a cosmic force whose sweep is irresistible. I get the pleasure of using that quote at every wedding I do. At every wedding, it's one of my quotes I use. Love is a cosmic force whose sweep is irresistible. And when two people are getting married, they stand in front of me, a perfect example of that cosmic force that was so irresistible to itself, it had to couple. That's what love is, finding itself in one another. But today we're here to talk about finding it in ourselves. The greatest love of all, learning to love yourself. And that's really what I want to talk about today. I do not think we love ourselves enough. Would anybody agree with that? Yes. I think we have found many, many, many ways to amuse ourselves. I think we have found many ways to avoid ourselves. But I think we need to find much, 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 much more in our lives that proves to us that we love ourselves. The greatest love of all is actually, they say, the hardest love of all. Self-love, loving yourself. Love means to be generous. Love means to be kind. Love means to be supportive at all times. Love means to know the truth about that which you are looking upon, regardless of what you see. How many people here are married or in a relationship? So then you know. How many people have ever been in a relationship? Should that cover the rest of the room, I hope? So then you know your job as the partner or the spouse or the husband or the wife of that other person is to see the truth regardless of how many times they show you everything else. I, of course, don't have that issue, but it's our job to see the truth. It's our job to be generous, to be kind, to be supportive. It is our job to know the truth. And now let's turn that around. It's our job to be all of those things to ourselves. Are you generous with yourself? Are you kind to yourself? Do you support your own ideas and your own dreams? Or do you spend so much time shooting them down? Do you know the truth about yourself regardless of what you prove? Regardless of what you see in the mirror? Mirror. I will be generous to myself and not even go there. So, to be generous, to be kind, to be supportive, to see only the truth about ourselves, that's the greatest love of all. It's who we are. It's what we are. So why is it so hard? I really want you to ask yourself that question today. For those of you that find it hard to really love yourself unconditionally. Not, I love myself when I'm this weight. I love myself when I have this job. I love myself when I succeed. When I'm on top of the world, I love myself. When I look like Leonardo DiCaprio, I love myself. Oh. Now see, I'm equal to that. That's how life works. Love, I found this quote. It's a beautiful quote. It's 101 ways to love yourself. You can just Google it, it'll come up. But one of the quotes was, love within yourself leads to love for everything else. Love within yourself leads to love within everything else. It goes on to say, through self-love, you lay the foundation to become your greatest potential. Through self-love, you lay the foundation to become your greatest potential. That makes sense. I mean, how can you realize who you are if you don't love yourself? How can you really know who you are if you don't love yourself? And if you don't love yourself, how can you know who you are? You can't. If you don't love yourself, if there's any part of yourself you don't love, you don't know who you are. If there's any behavior, anything about yourself that you don't love, you don't get it, that you are God, expressing perfectly. And please, I'm actually meaning the great grandness of those statements. I actually do mean everything. You have to love the wart as much as the pimple. You have to love the wart as much as the beauty. You have to be okay with all of it. You have to love yourself in spite of what you may think about yourself. So, we're in the middle of CPR. We're in the first 5-6 days of CPR. And I have to be very honest, I had this idea and I wanted to do it. And so like everything else in my life, I just jumped in and I did it. And it's working through me as we go along. And so one of the things we've done, right where we are in the process, for those of you who are not joining us, where we are in the process of finding beliefs about ourselves that we weren't perhaps aware of, things we believe in. So I, of course, am doing this work too. This is the first time I'm doing it. So I'm doing it 1,000%, hook, line, and sinker. So I'm at the gym. I've already done all right, today, everybody, find a belief. Find all these beliefs about yourself. Find out what you think about yourself. And I'm at the gym, and I'm on the treadmill, and it occurred to me I might want to try it while I was doing that since I was held captive. So I thought, okay, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this belief comes up. And I was like, oh, you do not have that belief. And I was like, except that you thought about it all day yesterday. Yes, you do have that belief. So what do you think about that? And I'm like running for my life on this treadmill. And I'm like, unbelievable. I really can believe that about myself? After all of these years? I was like, yes, you really can. And I thought, okay, so what's the next part of this? The next day, our job was to argue it from both sides, because beliefs are impersonal. We make them personal. We give them the power. So if I pull that belief away from myself and just look at it impersonally, I can look at it from the positive side and from the negative side, thus rendering it kind of rendering it powerless, thank you. I was going to say weak, sickly, dying. Just render it useless in my life. So I did that. Spending an entire day arguing one belief in my mind was exhausting. It really was. And I know those of you that are doing the process, I'm sure it was a bit exhausting if you really gave it your 100% attention like I did. But what I really got and what I really understood was that is the most wonderful way for me to love myself. To really get rid of all the bull crap in my life. To really get rid of the stuff in my mind that does not love me. Because there are still things in my mind that don't love me, that hold me captive at times. The lyric in the song is, let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. It is inferred there that we used to be happy when we were carefree children. Now, I was a very happy child. Most children are happy if you leave them alone. I guess that's the point, isn't it? If we leave ourselves alone to let God speak through us, we can be a lot happier. So, let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Marianne Williamson says this. She says, children are happy because they don't have a file in their heads called all the things that could go wrong. Children are happy because they don't have a file in their head of all the things I have done wrong. The children are happy because they don't have a file in their head that says, here's what everyone tells me is wrong with me. And they don't have a file in their head that has already agreed to and been put on the hard drive of my mind, a file in my head that says, this is what I believe about myself. Children are just natural explorers. They assume that they are God's gift. If you have a child, you know that. Children assume they are God's gifts to the planet. Children assume they are God's gift to you, and they are. Sometimes they're frustrating, but they are. They are God's gift to the planet. We are God's gift to the planet. Most children are happy. Do you know why? Because most children live in the present. They really are not looking back to see, what have I done with my life? How many 6-year-olds have you asked, what have you done with your life? They'll basically tell you, I played. But did you play well? Did you succeed at playing? Are you the best player in your class? That's what's important. Does anybody have my mother? That's not true. Yes, it is. I can be nice to her and be honest. So I really want to talk today about this concept of children. Children truly live in the present. Where do we live? It doesn't occur to them to try to recreate something because there's so much more to create in their lives. So this idea, it's inferred that we used to be happy. Today's talk is this title, Is there really such a thing as used to be? Is there really such a thing as used to be? How many of us are spending our lives trying to recreate things that were wonderful in our lives? How often do you catch yourself trying to recreate a success you had before? Or trying to create, I love this. So last night, Gareth Klein turned 16. He's our godson. And I know, 16 years we've watched him from birth to this 16 years. And Lynn and Jamie and Gareth came over and we had a birthday party. And Lynn made a video of Gareth from birth through today. And so Jamie got his guitar and played, and we watched the slideshow of his life, of which Kevin and I are a part of. And I couldn't help but notice my hair. I could not help but notice the many stages of hair that I have had over the years. And I'm going to call myself out on something right now. So recently, I have been trying to grow my hair. I've been trying to grow my hair to look the way it looked when I was 32. And I had this long, beautiful jet black hair. That's not going to happen unless I go to Kristen and say, jet black, now. Right? So I'm watching this video, and my daughter, Nora, she's looking at me and she's going, Dad, you really looked different. Okay, so I reinserted young into what she said. You really looked young. And so I asked her this morning, I said, so you know when you said I look different, do I really look that different? Because you really want to ask a child this, because they're going to tell you the truth. I said, do I really look that different than I looked 16 years ago? You know what she said to me? She said, no, your hair does. I know! And so my ego is going all over the room, and I'm like, I still look good. And she said, and you know what, to be really honest, I like your hair short and gray. I said, good, because you don't have a choice. I could grow it. But I started thinking, why was I growing my hair? I was trying to create what used to be. I was trying to live in the past. I was trying to look the way I looked then. Anybody else? Am I the only person that's going to admit to this? Okay, so where you keep trying to do things to create what you were, forgetting that the creative power of the universe is right here, right now, to create something brand new, better than anything you've ever done before, yes? Yes. That's the absolute truth. So, is there such a thing, really such a thing as used to be? No, there's not. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. The hardest thing to do is to walk in your own shadow. Have you ever tried walking in your own shadow? You can't. It is constantly eluding you. You just can't. And who the heck said your shadow was so great to begin with? I'll let you catch up. Right where you are right now is where the greatness lies. How could I not love that? How could I not love the fact that right where I am now, at this age, with this hair, with these wrinkles, with everything, I know you can't see them, they're there. With what I have right now, everything is possible for me. Everything. I remember this, thank you. Yes. I remember this image of Yvette and I. You know, Yvette and I, we're Broadway stars, let's face it. So, and I know there are many others out in the room, but we're talking about us right now. So one day, when she had her babies and I had my babies, no, baby, you had your baby, one baby, I had two babies, and we're walking through Studio City with our strollers. And we run into Marcia Mitzman, also a Broadway star, who's out on her lawn playing with her babies. And we're all talking about diapers and how we get no sleep and all sorts of things. I feel like a housewife right now. Oh my God, I'm so busted. And so we're walking, and all of a sudden Yvette and I look at each other, we stopped, and we're like, we used to be Broadway stars. Look what it's turned into. We just kept, remember that? We laugh about that all the time. But at that time, I gotta be honest with you, that didn't have any sting whatsoever, really. Because what we had in those bassinets, what we had in those strollers was so much more than anything we'd ever found on Broadway. And then as life goes on, you start going back and thinking about all the things you did and all the people you were, all the different people you were. It's very hard to walk in your own shadow. I will never be, you will never be what you used to be. And oh my God, isn't that good? And I mean that even in the greatest of examples. You know, I remember Brad Blaisdell because I saw his opening night on Broadway when he had his first big Broadway hit. And I sat there in that audience and watched him and thought, I want to do that someday. And I was in a Broadway show at the time, but I was in the chorus. I know, I'm ready to go. I was never in the chorus. Yes, you are. You were in the chorus. That's my head talking to me. See? And I see Brad Blaisdell now, and I see someone so possible, so unbelievably gifted and talented. And that has nothing to do with it. That's just part of the journey. Shakti Gawain says this: we will discover the nature of our particular genius when we stop trying to conform to our own or other people's models and allow our natural channel to open. We will discover the nature of our particular genius. Your particular genius changes every day. You are not the genius you were yesterday, you're the genius you are now. You will not be the genius tomorrow that you are today, you will be the genius in that moment that you are then. And if you are willing to open the channel, and the channel is self-love, that's the channel. That's the channel you tune into, self-love. If you are willing to love yourself, you open the channel. And your particular genius shines through. It can't help but shine through. It can't help but come forward. Martha Graham wrote, "You are unique. And if that is not fulfilled, something in this world has been lost." You are unique, and if that has not been fulfilled, something in you, something in the world has been lost. So what is in you to do today? Not what was in you to do before, not what's in me to do later. What is in you to do today? Because today is all you have. This is it. It's never going to get any better than it is right in this moment. But that's a good thing. When we drove up here, Will said, "I love Sundays." I know. Nora said, "I hate Sundays." The male, female behind me. And I said, what do you mean you hate Sunday? She goes, ugh, it just means that Monday is next. And I said, sweetie, you need to stay in the present moment. And I actually did say this, not the best parenting. I said, if you were to die tonight, tomorrow's not even going to come. And she was like, Dad, how could you say if I'm going to die tonight? I said, that's not what I'm saying. These are the conversations we have on our way to the church. Yeah. And I did say to her before I left her off at youth with Patrick and said, let Patrick figure this out with you. I said, you do know what I'm trying to say, right? And she goes, I know. You want me to live in the present? But that's it, isn't it? That's our job, to live in the present. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, if I have lost confidence in myself, I have the universe against me. Yeah. If I lose confidence in myself, I have the universe against me. How often do you speak against yourself? How often do you hear yourself say something to yourself that you would not let anybody else say to you? You are the power of the universe right there in that moment. You're the power of the universe. So when you say something to yourself, the power of the universe is speaking. And you hear it. And you listen to it. And most of the time you believe it on some level. Loving yourself is not just a nice thing to do. Loving yourself is not just some really fun subject, some subject that they wrote a song about. It is imperative. Today's talk, this concept today, is the answer to every one of your issues. If you are willing to actively engage in loving yourself 24/7, not just occasionally, 24/7. If you were to reparent yourself, I do not let anyone say anything negative to me about my children. Constructive things I need to hear, fine. But anything mean or that's not true, absolutely not. And I don't know a parent worth their salt who lets anyone tell them anything negative about their children. Now, why don't I do that to myself? Why don't I do that for myself? It's the most important thing you are ever going to do, loving yourself. Your entire life revolves around how much you do or do not love yourself. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. It's time to get rid of all of the excuses we all have for not loving ourselves. Do you have them? Do you have your excuses for why you don't love yourself? I'm looking at some of the smiles. We do. We have the reasons. We have the excuses. I can tell you why I shouldn't love myself in this particular situation. And yet, what does that do for me? What is that really going to do? What is it really going to do for me to say anything to myself other than, James Mellon, you are the pure potentiality of the universe right here in this moment. You are open to the infinite wisdom of the universe. There's nothing in you that ever has to search. It's all right there. There is nothing in you that will ever need for anything because the very thing you think you need is right there. It will never get any better, James, than it is right now in this moment. You will never be in a place that's any more magnificent than this place right now. And if you just know that, if you just look, if you just are aware of that, as Nancy said, if you are just willing, instead of saying, I don't like this, say, I'm willing to know what's here for me. Because I guarantee you, if you are willing to love yourself, if you are willing to love yourself unconditionally, then God is saying to you, what is there for you? Everything you could ever possibly want. Finances, health, creative expression, magnificent relationships. It's all right there for you. Learning to love yourself. It's the greatest gift of all. And if by chance that special place that you've been dreaming of leads you to another space, find your strength in love. Love is the self-givingness of spirit to itself. Love is a force whose sweep is irresistible. I say, we got to stop resisting and just let love do what love's here to do. Namaste.